Okay, so welcome back to World History. Today we're covering Pre-Columbian America. So we're still around the same time period. We're in, ancient times. We're looking at different civilizations who flourished. Um, they're a little more recent, from 300 to 900 AD. The Mayans flourished. They were from the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. It's one of the most sophisticated civilizations in the Americas. So the Mayans, we know, built many temples, many pyramids, and they created a really complicated calendar that was the most accurate in the world at the time. It's based on their calendar is based on 365 days a year. And around 800 AD, they began to decline. We don't really know exactly what happened to the Mayans. Could have been invasion, could have been disease, could have been revolts, could have been volcanic eruptions, overuse of land, whatever happened. A lot of the Mayan civilizations began to decline. You start to see the cities abandoned and covered in dense jungle. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries that men who were exploring actually found some of the Mayan cities that had been covered in this jungle growth. So here you have the Chichen Itza, which is in kind of near Cancun, Mexico. This is in 1892 when it was found. So it's covered up in all this jungle and vegetation, and this is a picture of the Chichen Itza today. So a lot of the buildings, a lot of their temples and pyramids that they had built are still in pretty good shape because they had been grown up with a lot of this vegetation, and it had kind of like shielded it from the sun. So it prevented a lot more of the erosion that you would have seen. They also will go back in and repair pieces so that whenever tourists come, they're able to see more of what these temples would have looked like then. So this is a picture of their calendar, and you remember like the world was going to end in 2012 because the calendar ended in 2012. Good times. Here's another temple, an aerial view of some of the temples that they had and how sophisticated they were in their buildings, their architecture. This is actually at the Lamani ruins in Belize. The Mayan civilization, like a lot of their big cities, stretched from Mexico down into southern Central America. This is new here. You can see that they had rebuilt some of this. Actually climbed up this. There's a staircase around back. They don't let you climb up this particular part. I only climbed up to about here, but it was really cool. You could see the rest of the city and a lot of the other temples from there. When you're going through the jungle here, you hear the howler monkeys, which sound like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, if you've ever heard that. So it's it's really cool. So the views are nice. Whenever you go see these, if you ever go see these, it's always like a climb at your own risk kind of thing. But they're really cool to see in person. They're huge. So the Aztecs are another group that we'll look at. They were pretty prominent during the 12th century. They arrived in the Valley of Mexico. So they believed that they would migrate until they saw a sign. That sign was actually going to be an eagle perched on a cactus growing out of a rock. And so on the flag here, the Mexican flag, you have the eagle perched on a cactus growing out of a rock. And he's got a snake in his mouth. So in 1325, the Aztecs were under attack and driven into the swamps near Lake Texcoco. Then they saw this eagle, and they established the capital city of Tenochtitlan, which is the place of prickly pear cactus. That's modern-day Mexico City. And here you are, your eagle eating a snake, perched on a cactus, growing out of a rock. No big deal. So Tenochtitlan was built in the middle of Lake Texcoco. They built temples, buildings, houses. The Aztecs also built roads across the lake to the north and south and west so that they could get across the lake fairly easily. It connected the city to the mainland. By 1500, 4 million Aztecs lived in the Valley of Mexico. Their population grew, extremely large. The Aztecs were led by a monarch, and their power was derived from the gods. They were polytheistic. They had many gods. And they also had a calendar based on 365 days, kind of like the Mayans. Eventually, they were conquered by Hernan Cortez and the Spaniards. How unfortunate. Here's Tenochtitlan with the roads across the waterways. It's a very large city. Last but not least, we have the Inca. They were located in the mountains of Peru. And the Incan men were all required to serve in the army. Their army was about 200,000 strong. They're really cool because they figure out how to grow crops in the mountains. They literally live in the mountains and farm on the sides of hills. So they would use these terraced farms using water from irrigation systems that would carry water into their fields. They were the best engineers of all the Native American peoples. They built 24,800 miles of roads. They also built the city of Machu Picchu. And they also had the calendar based on 365 days. They didn't write or have a form of writing. So like the Mayans had their calendar where they had writing, and the Aztecs had writing. They used the quipu, which is just like knotted strings, and this would be like numbers. So however many knots would be a number here, a number here, a number here, and like those numbers were used to keep records for them. So here you have the Aztecs, the Mayans, and then the Inca, so that you know where they were located. Here's some of the Incan civilizations in the mountains, some of their leftover buildings. And you see the terraced farming, how they have the steps. So they could farm a little on this step and then move down a step and farm a little. Very resourceful, very advanced engineers. They also have the roads going up and down the sides of the mountains. They don't go straight up, they go back and forth. Very, very intelligent group of people. So that's the end of the Pre-Columbian Americas. We're going to stop here. The study guide will be the next assignment, and then we will take a test over these PowerPoints.